This is how the lives of some of the richest people went by behind bars. Today, we're going to look inside the prisons that were literally ordered for themselves by millionaires and crime bosses. From a cell built for one man and his friends, the most expensive in human history, to those who ran an entire prison like their own private business, doing whatever they pleased there. Welcome to the channel for the richest.
Luxury life.
Rolando, Florian, Felix, the king of luxury in Najayo. Let us start with Rolando, Florian, Felix, the real king of luxury in Najayo prison. Rolando, Florian, Felix was a Dominican drug lord, the head of one of the largest networks for the trafficking of illegal substances in recent decades. Before his arrest, he managed to accumulate a fortune estimated at about $100 million, naturally earned from trafficking. This money and his influence allowed him to turn his cell in Najayo prison into a real personal VIP apartment. On the day he was finally locked up, he was already prepared for the fact that he would live at least no worse than he had lived in freedom. He had taken care in advance to make sure that judges and prosecutors were well disposed, bribes were flying around in bundles, and his sentence was not too harsh. And most importantly, that on the day of his fall, he already had inside the prison everything he had managed to earn on the outside, only in a compact luxury version. His cell was equipped with air conditioning so that he would never suffer from the heat. A 42-inch plasma television hung on the wall. Next to it stood a refrigerator stuffed with delicacies and expensive food that he could eat at any moment, as if he were in an elite all-inclusive hotel. The furniture was made only of mahogany, massive, expensive, with individual design. The bed was king-size, not inferior to the beds in the best luxury hotels in the world. He had a personal collection of books and paintings that turned his cell into the study of a wealthy collector rather than that of a prisoner. Unlike the other inmates who ate what the prison provided, often food brought in garbage cans, half-rotten or simply disgusting in taste, Florian Felix never touched the prison kitchen. He had personal chefs right inside the prison. They cooked anything he wanted. If he wanted black caviar in his cell, no problem. If he wanted lobster, it was already boiling. They said that he ate lobsters, imported Japanese steaks, exquisite Dutch cheeses, and elite wines, spending about $1,000 a week on food alone. While other prisoners were fighting over a portion of beans, he lived at the gastronomic level of a 5-star restaurant. He had access to the internet. He could play any game consoles. Consoles were bought outside and brought inside through bribed guards. They connected them to his television and he could calmly play while lying on his bed and lighting up something forbidden. Yes, even that he allowed himself. He listened to whatever music he wanted, most often salsa and trap, and could watch any TV channels thanks to a satellite dish that gave him access to public television and entertainment programs. He stayed up to date with the news as if he were not in prison at all. But the most striking thing was the parties. He threw private celebrations right inside the prison. Alcohol flowed like a river, women, live music. His cellmates and other prisoners indirectly entered this world of luxury as well. Through the guards, Florian organized parties with live performances by musicians, dancing, and drinking until morning. Not a single police officer dared to say anything. He had privileged visitations. He did not have to wait like the others for Sunday with a 1-hour family visit. In fact, he turned his cell into a luxury-level apartment. He could receive guests outside the established schedule, including frequent intimate visits. According to estimates, he spent from $3,000 to $5,000 a week only on paying models and sex workers who came to him in prison for intimate meetings. It was reported that he was visited by professional models as well as women with whom he arranged secret dates, and these were by no means his legal relationships. Thanks to his millions, Florian bribed the guards and received any privileges. If someone inside the prison did not please him or violated his rules, he simply gave the order, and the police, together with other inmates, arranged a brutal beating for that person. Inside the prison, he quickly became the main leader in the maximum security blocks. He controlled part of the internal organization of the prison as if it were his private structure. But despite his influence and money, in 2009, he was shot dead right in the prison during a conflict with one of the employees of the penitentiary system. His death exposed a monstrous level of corruption and the luxurious regime in which he had lived for years, and it became a shock for society. Only after his death did people officially see the full scale of lawlessness. He remained in history as a man who did whatever he wanted in prison only because of money. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, an emperor behind bars. Let us continue with another prison emperor, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most powerful drug lords in the world. At the peak of his power, Guzman's fortune was estimated at more than $12 billion. During his multiple arrests in Mexico, his influence allowed him to live in conditions that ordinary prisoners could not even dream of.
During his imprisonment in Puente Grande prison, his cell was equipped with a plasma television, and he had several mobile phones to communicate with his family, keep track of social media, and continue to run the cartel right from prison, giving orders over the phone. He had a refrigerator filled with delicacies and a private bathroom, which in itself is an enormous luxury by prison standards. While ordinary prisoners ate the standard prison food, El Chapo received premium steaks, seafood, exquisite desserts brought from Italy, and special drinks that he tasted alone or in the company of his closest associates. Most often, he drank cognac and Dom Perignon, luxury class champagne, as if he were sitting not in a prison but in a closed club for millionaires. He had access to music, satellite television, and even a small personal gym where he could keep in shape. In addition, he was allowed to receive numerous visitors. Women and relatives came to him without strict limitations. El Chapo had long been a legendary figure. The entire prison knew about him. Among his guests were famous models, TV hosts, and very beautiful women, to whom it was believed he paid huge sums for intimate encounters, sometimes right inside the prison. There were also women with whom he had romantic relationships even before his imprisonment. The guards treated him completely differently from ordinary inmates. Many of them literally served him, offered massages, and carried out any errands. They were at the full disposal of one of the most dangerous and richest criminals on the planet. At some point, his influence became so powerful that he could bribe officials, controlling not only his own prison, but also other places of detention throughout Mexico. He gave orders to punish those prisoners who did not meet his terms, did not pay the required sums, or did not obey. Not only they, but also their families were under threat. He felt so confident that at one moment he simply decided to escape. But before he disappeared, he managed to organize more than 40 parties inside the prison, with alcohol, models, music, and multi-day revelry accompanied by loud live music. The entire prison turned into a nightclub. El Chapo twice became a fugitive from the justice system of the United States. But in the end, indicted to the Supermax prison ADX Florence in the state of Colorado. There, all his privileges disappeared. Since then, for more than 7 years, he has been kept in solitary confinement, with harsh restrictions and without any luxurious conditions. According to his family and lawyers, he is regularly subjected to psychological and physical torture. At 3 in the morning, they douse him with cold water. At 6 in the evening, they force him to lie down, and at night, they use methods that destroy his sleep. They wake him so that he cannot sleep for more than 2 hours in a row, constantly frightening him and knocking him out of balance. Sometimes they tell him false news about the death of his relatives in order to break his psyche. It is said that he has been mocked, beaten, and humiliated in ways that one would not wish even on the worst enemy. It is believed that his mental state is gradually breaking down, and his physical health is deteriorating because of constant pressure and beatings. In fact, he has been torn away from the world. Some relatives really did die, and others, according to rumors, he believes to be dead only because of these manipulations. All this is done to keep him in a state of maximum depression. What do you think? Did he deserve such torment? Today, he is still in this prison, and many are sure that he will spend literally his entire life there, never seeing real sunlight again. Juan Gabriel, the divine one from Juarez in Lecumberri. Now let us move from the world of drug lords to the world of music and the stage. Juan Gabriel, whose real name was Alberto Aguilera Valadez, is a legend of Mexican music, the divine one from Juarez. His work became part of Mexico's culture, and during his lifetime, his fortune was estimated at more than $200 million. But before he became a millionaire and an icon of the stage, his life passed through a very dark corridor, through prison. In 1969, he was imprisoned in the notorious Lecumberri prison, one of the scariest in Mexico. He was accused of theft. At that time, he still did not have the money that later made him one of the richest stars in the history of music. At first, he was placed in an ordinary cell, with no conveniences, no luxury, no special conditions. But his charisma and talent literally began to change his fate even behind bars. When the guards and other prisoners heard him sing, they relaxed and felt that in front of them stood a future star. His voice became an outlet
for them. The guards and wardens liked his songs so much that over time they moved him to a more spacious and comfortable cell, where he had clean clothes, a comfortable mattress, and additional privileges that other prisoners did not have. While the others ate standard prison food, cheap, tough, often tasteless, like overcooked beans and stale tortillas, Juan Gabriel began to receive special food. The guards brought him products from outside the prison: meat, tamales, sweet pastries, good coffee. He became the main singer of the prison, performing small improvised concerts for guards and prisoners who had power and influence. Over time, he was allowed to have a guitar so that he could not only sing, but also create music. His talent went far beyond the prison walls. Important people on the outside began to talk about him. It is believed that high-ranking officials began to visit him personally and provided him with special protection inside the prison.
It was thanks to these connections, which he made within the prison walls, that in 1971, he was helped to be released earlier than the original sentence. And then, he signed his first $1 million music contract. In 2016, Juan Gabriel died, leaving behind a musical legacy and a multi-million-dollar fortune. Ironically, his time in Lecumberri, although at first it was a real nightmare, ultimately became a springboard that launched him toward worldwide fame. Number 1. San Antonio Prison on Margarita Island, an autonomous paradise for cons. Next comes a prison that looks more like a criminal resort. San Antonio Prison on the tourist island of Margarita in Venezuela became a symbol of extreme corruption and the complete self-governance of prisoners. Here, the inmates turned the prison into their own private resort, where money and power decided absolutely everything. The main master of this resort was Teofilo Rodriguez, known as El Conejo, the Rabbit. He was a crime boss with a multi-million-dollar fortune, and he turned the prison into a place ruled by luxury and all possible mortal sins. While ordinary Venezuelan prisons were in horrific condition, where prisoners literally died of poverty, unsanitary conditions, and violence, San Antonio Prison lived by other rules. Inside the prison, there was a huge pool area where inmates relaxed on hot days as if at an elite resort. The cells of high-ranking inmates were furnished with king-size beds, plasma televisions, and air conditioning systems, creating a sharp contrast with the inhumane conditions in other prisons of the country. Alcohol, relatives, models, sex workers, and wives entered the prison freely, practically without any restrictions. The richest inmates could order food from other countries, bringing seafood, imported steaks, and exclusive desserts into the prison. Barbecues and cookouts were regularly organized inside, something most prisoners in the world could not even dream of. Alcohol sold there was of premium level, from elite whiskeys to expensive champagne. The prison became famous for its closed parties, where famous musicians and women were invited to entertain the high-ranking inmates. Prisoners had unrestricted access to firearms and mobile phones. They controlled the flow of money, bought services, bribed officials, and essentially managed the entire system from within. It got to the point where some inmates could leave the prison during the day, on business, and calmly return at night simply to sleep there. In 2016, after the death of El Conejo, the Venezuelan government finally intervened, dismantled his rule, and took the prison under control. In 2017, the prison was closed, leaving people only with memories of how for years a handful of criminals ran an official prison, turning it into the embodiment of injustice and impunity. Footballer Robinho, a comfortable life in the prison of stars. Now let us move into the world of big football. Robson de Souza, better known as Robinho, is a star of Brazilian football who played for Real Madrid and AC Milan. Over his career, he accumulated a fortune of about $50 million. In 2022, he was sentenced to prison time in Brazil in a case of gang rape that took place in Italy in 2013. But the prison where he ended up was not at all the kind of place where ordinary people are usually sent. He was sent to Tremembe, a prison known as the Prison of Celebrities. Former footballers, politicians, and influential figures are held there. The inmates there live in spacious, clean cells, have access to recreation areas, and even to spaces that look more like leisure zones than prison blocks. Unlike ordinary prisoners, Robinho can receive food cooked by his family and brought from outside. Traditional Brazilian dishes, grilled meat, homemade desserts. He takes part in internal football tournaments where his talent earns respect even from the most serious criminal authorities. This gives him 24/7 protection because
gang leaders find it beneficial to have such a person beside them. He has access to any libraries he wants, to television, and to video games. He can do agricultural work in the prison garden. In essence, he can spend almost the entire day outdoors in the sun under the guise of farm work and not feel locked up the way a typical inmate does. But the most unusual thing is the prison Tinder. In this prison, there is a system very similar to a dating app. Inmates get acquainted with people through photos and letters, and then these women can come to them for intimate visits in a format similar to conjugal visits. And most importantly, this can happen practically without limitations whenever the inmate wants. Even though officially he is in prison, Robinho's life is very comfortable compared to that of ordinary inmates. He makes maximum use of the flexibility of the Brazilian penitentiary system, and adding his money and fame to that, lives in a way many people on the outside cannot afford. He literally continues to live a privileged life, just with a different registered address, a prison one. Bastøy Prison in Norway, a humane paradise for criminals. Here's an example of a prison where there is no corruption and criminal luxury, but there is another kind of luxury, human treatment. Bastøy Prison in Norway shows how a well-organized system can give inmates decent conditions without bribes and criminal schemes. It is located on an island in the Oslo Fjord and houses some of Norway's most dangerous criminals, including murderers and rapists.
But the approach there is based on the idea of rehabilitation and quality of life, not on pure punishment. Instead of classic concrete cells, inmates live in wooden houses with separate rooms. There are no high walls, no barbed fences. Inmates can move freely around the island as long as they follow the rules, like residents of a small village. Instead of a standard prison cafeteria, they cook for themselves using fresh, high-quality products. There are gardens and farms on the territory where they grow part of the food themselves. Healthy, balanced nutrition is promoted, as for people who still have a whole life ahead of them. And that is not all. In winter, inmates can go skiing. They have access to an Olympic-sized swimming pool. They can do horseback riding and ride bicycles in the fresh air. There are tennis courts and large football fields. In addition, the prison has its own private beach where inmates can plunge into the waters of the fjord. The prison offers many creative and cultural activities, from painting to music and theater. Because of all this, many compare Bastøy to a resort hotel. You get there and it does not feel like an infernal prison. You live almost as in an ideal world, only with restrictions. It is like an Eden for the soul, but inside there still remains a reminder that you are here for crimes. Many say that it is like living in a dream apartment, with comforts and freedom that hardworking, honest people dream of but cannot always afford. And the most important thing is that this system delivers results. The prison has a high level of successful rehabilitation and a very low rate of reoffending. People who leave Bastøy rarely return to criminal life. Inmates are helped to learn professions and skills so that after release they can find jobs and live normal lives. Bastøy is often cited as a successful example of prison reform, and people discuss whether a similar system can be implemented in other countries. Write in the comments which of these stories shocked you the most and why. Do you believe that such conditions in prisons are fair? Or does money break the system too much? And also, rate this video with a like or a dislike, subscribe to the channel, and right now, go watch the previous incredible episodes on the channel for the richest.